And we are live. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Let's Talk Fishing podcast with Jay Angel. Let's Talk Fishing podcast brought to you by Grant Rods, the American Bass Club, and of course, Crusher Lures. Folks, tonight I have a very special guest. I can't wait to talk to this guy about this, but Kevin Timms started out in Georgia, and now he is in Wisconsin. And man, I've talked to a lot of guys like me who've moved from the north down to the south, but now I have a guy who went the other way, went from the south up to the north. I want to hear about this. I want to hear about this.
Well, I tell you, Jay. It is a pleasure to be on here with you.
Well, thank you. And you know what? I can't do it without guys like you. So it's a mutual thing, man. Thank you.
Yes, sir. It takes both of us.
So, Georgia.
Yes, sir.
Boy, I haven't fished a whole lot of places in the South. I fished Florida a lot because my dad used to live there. Now I fish, Louisiana, and of course a lot of different places in Mississippi because that's close.
Mm-hmm.
But every place in Florida and in Louisiana looks like it should hold bass. Is Georgia similar to that?
Believe it or not, yes. My home lake in Georgia is Lake Lanier.
Okay.
I grew up on Lake Sidney Lanier and really watched it progress. It's right now probably I would say one of the top 5 spotted bass destinations that you
Spots.
could.
The
Oh
bane
yeah.
of my existence.
I mean, they're to me they're almost like a smallmouth, but yet a smallmouth is on steroids, right?
Yeah, but
Uh,
fast bite.
yes. I've seen the progression of Lake Lanier go from to where you could catch whenever I was a kid. We would go out. We would catch lake trout. That's whenever they stocked lake trout before
Woo!
they.
Lake
Yeah,
trout in Georgia. There you go,
abs-
man.
a-
Wow.
absolutely. I
Something
mean,
I did not know.
oh yeah, me and my mom and dad and the neighbors, we would go out, because we lived on the lake. We'd go out there at night in the main part of the lake and really just drop down, just night crawlers and catch. Oh Lord, you could catch 10-pound lake trout out of
Lake
there.
trout on night crawlers. There's a new one to me, man.
Oh
I've,
yeah,
I've caught them in Wisconsin, actually in Big Green Lake.
yep,
I've caught them in Michigan, in of course Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, Lake Superior. I've caught them in Alaska when I lived up there.
yep.
But I never would have thought to go to Georgia to fish for lake trout. That's just a new one, man.
Well, ever since they started introducing stripers into Lanier, the lake trout kind of went away. I don't know. I've got some friends that's still there that live on the lake, but I don't know if they've caught any. I haven't heard of anybody catching any in a while.
Well,
But
also they're not going to naturally reproduce there. They have to be able to run up a river.
correct. And I
And
mean,
it has to be a cold river. They come up in the fall.
hmm well, you actually have 2 cold rivers that flow into Lake
Really?
Lanier. Yes, sir. You got the Chattahoochee River and you got the Chestatee River, and actually both of them at their headwaters where they start up in the mountains towards, Helen and up above there in Trey Mountain where Chattahoochee River starts up through there. I mean, that's a great creek fishing. Trout fishing there is different than what it is here.
Yeah,
I've really found that out. But yeah,
yeah.
there's some good trout.
People take their trout fishing in northern Wisconsin.
Absolutely.
You
Yes,
said
sir.
that. You said that word Chattahoochee. I just started thinking about that old country song.
Alan Jackson.
Yeah, I love me and some Alan Jackson, man.
Yes, sir. No, but
Um,
go ahead.
so so Wisconsin, you
Yes, sir.
don't have the amount of cover in Wisconsin. That's what I like about fishing in the north. You have elements of cover. Sometimes the smallmouth bass will spread out over a sand flat, but they're pretty easy to find on that sand flat, and they're pretty. And also the water is clear, so if you're throwing a little bitty Ned rig, they're gonna find it. You just make it sit there, and as attention deficit as I am, and come on, no day, just let it sit there. I can't let that sit there. Come on,
Yeah.
you're gonna
Well,
find it. But it's not like that in the north because, or in the south because most of the water. I don't know about Georgia, but most of the water down here is very stained, and you got to practically drop it right on their head, or have one of those big, a spinner bait with 5 different cowbells on it.
Well, yeah, or either just the crusher lure
Yeah.
spinnerbait.
Yes. Big old spinner bait.
Well, I will say, believe it or not, most of the water that I've found up here, besides unless you go to, I've last year I fished Big Bay and Little Bay to knock, which is
Sure. Clear.
is way
Clear.
up. Yes, very clear. I mean, you can see 30 foot down,
Yes. And
and
smallmouth bass, aren't they beautiful in that water? Woo.
oh, Lord of mercy. I mean, you see a big black spot way down there and you're thinking, well, that's just a little fish, and it wound up being a 4 pounder.
And
Yeah.
it's big around, man.
y- it's like a football.
Tell
It's
me
like a
what you think about when you're fighting one and it's coming up like this, and you're watching it, that big old brownie coming up.
they're the
Gives me
freshwater
goosebumps.
they're the
Gives me
freshwater tarpon.
goosebumps. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Gives me
Freshwater
goosebumps.
tarpons. You cannot keep them. If they want to jump, they're going to jump no matter what. And
Yeah.
you just hope and pray that they stay on. They
And I
stay
still
hooked
put
up.
my pole in the water every time that happens.
Yes, sir.
Even though
But
I'm not gonna make him not jump. It's just you got to do something.
yes, and believe it or not, I found there's not very many clear lakes around here that I've found. Um,
Big green.
Big Green, it is clear as long as it doesn't have a lot of boat traffic and a certain time of year. The lake that I live right here close to, which is about 2 minutes away, which is Castle Rock, which is actually on the, oh,
Wisconsin River.
yes, sir, constantly dirty. I mean,
Well, yeah,
it's
that's because it's of the Wisconsin River. It's all tannin stain.
yeah, but I mean, you're talking about smallmouth on there. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some very good smallmouth, and there's actually for the first time, I fished it a lot. Well, the first time this year, or actually towards the end of last year, I caught some largemouth out of there, and I'm
Oh, I
talking,
bet you did. I
I
bet you
mean,
did.
but there again, I caught them on a buzz bait.
Yeah, but you're using those bud baits, and the muskies come up after them. Not alligators anymore. Now they're muskies.
And I've been very fortunate to catch some muskies and them toothy critters, them northerns.
Now,
There's there's not a time that I don't go out
that's a
now.
matter of opinion. Whether you're
I,
lucky or not.
there's not a time that I don't go out now that I absolutely do not catch a northern. If I don't catch a northern, then it's going to be a bad day.
Well, I could show you scars on my hands from those dang things.
I got you.
Holding it
Dang,
like
dang.
this with both hands. Come on, Dad, get those six hooks out of this thing. Come on, Dad. Slide right
Absolutely.
down through. Now I got trebles in my hand.
Yes, sir.
Or trying to get it, and he slimes, and that tooth just goes.
Yeah, right across you.
I'm thinking I cut 3 major arteries, and it's bleeding like that, blood all over Dad's boat, and
I tell you, I was very fortunate. I didn't realize, there's another lake, small lakes. I literally have probably 6 smaller lakes that I can fish this within 20 minutes of me, right? So I'm very fortunate.
with
Mississippi River's an hour from me.
yes,
The Madison Chain's an hour from me.
yes.
I'm in like a geological oddity, as they'd say in the movie "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou." I'm a geological oddity. I'm an hour from some of the best lakes here. But
Well, that's Wisconsin, man. You're never more than an hour away from a great place to fish.
absolutely, yeah. Even
It's
if
just Wisconsin. If you look at Wisconsin, even Baraboo, like what's around Baraboo? Well,
you
within an
got
hour of Baraboo, you got a lot of real good places to fish.
yeah, well, you got Mirror Lake down there
Yeah.
at Baraboo, which Redstone from Baraboo's not far, and also
Nope.
the Eagle. There's a Eagle Lake down there. It's in It's in the state park. You can't use a big motor in there, but it's a real deep glacier lake. It's real small. I
Was that
mean,
Devil's Lake?
Devil's Lake. There you go. Yeah, Devil's Lake. I put in and fished that last year and caught trout and caught
When I was about
smallmouth.
5 years old, mom and dad and I went, and my sister all went to Devil's Lake, and Mom caught a 5-pound largemouth.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was mad.
Yeah.
I want to catch that because I can see it, and I'm casting and casting and casting. It didn't want a worm. Mom had on a plastic worm, and she caught it.
And that was the place I've caught my biggest northern to date. It was 43 inches.
That's a big one.
Yes, sir. It hit.
Up in
It hit.
Alaska, I caught a 48 and a quarter.
Wow.
Yeah, it was about 28 pounds, and
Whew.
it still didn't. I went up there with a group of three guys, and we took a fly-in trip to a place to fish for northerns, and I still didn't win. Everybody puts in $100, and I
Yeah.
still didn't win. Fish takes all. 48 and a quarter, I did not win.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah, but Alaska's on a different scale than just about every. You talk about lake trout. Wow.
Yeah, and I was very fortunate last year to catch probably the biggest muskie I've ever caught in Redstone. Just throwing a jerk bait, I seen some fish come up, and I fish Redstone a lot. I love Redstone.
Redstone, is that on the Mississippi River?
No, sir. It's around Dutch Hollow, Laval, which is about 20 minutes south, kind of southeast of me.
Okay.
Like I said, it's 20 minutes. I can be there, take the boat to work, boom, go down there. It's just a real nice. It's got a good deep. It's deep in areas. I see everybody. They're always throwing these big, huge musky baits that takes a deep sea rod to throw. And I seen a little bit of fish busting out coming out of the north end, and I just stopped real quick and threw a jerk bait out there just to see what it was. And I was looking on the live scope, and all of a sudden I see this big old long thing coming at it, and I said, "Uh-oh!" And it hit. Jay, I ain't gonna lie, that thing pulled and pulled, and finally I got it up to the boat, and I was like, "Well, I'll just grab it like I do a northern, I'll just grab it on the top behind the gills." Literally, my hand was like this. And I could not reach around the back of it. It had to have been at least 40 inches. And finally I got
Yeah.
the hooks out and let it go. That was fun. That was real
The
fun.
guys who I know who really are into, they have cradles that they bring them up and they put the cradle around it and lift them in the, cut the hooks out, and you know,
Yes, sir. Yep.
their musky fishing is more of a cult than a sport. And
Oh, absolutely.
I have a lot of very good friends of mine who are muskie fishermen. They're just so hardcore, and no other fish exists other than muskies, and
Hmm.
everything else is bait, is what they say.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's just like, everybody talks about bass fishing around here. It's like, oh, you mean them green carp or those
Green
brown
carp,
carp?
yes, green
Yeah,
carp.
yeah. It's like, oh, come on now. You
They
know,
have
they're
them
they're all walleye or what,
all walleyes, yes.
and it doesn't matter if it's crappie, bass, perch or whatever. They say, well, what? And it's all panfish. You say panfish, that means all three or four of them species right there. So
Yeah, and walleyes are the only fish that matters. Yes, I grew up. Both sides of my family are from Wisconsin, so.
mhm.
But it's such a cool state.
It
Um,
is.
so, so you, as a member of the Crusher Lures Pro Team, what
Mhm.
is your favorite Crusher Lure product to use in Wisconsin? And if you
Oh,
have two or three of them, I mean, let's
uh,
just run down the list, because I
okay.
know you
Well,
don't just have one.
well, uh, you know, I will say, and I'm a spinner bait nut. Okay.
Sure.
So this is my favorite color, and this is a Cliff Crochet. It's the petite
Yeah, I was
model.
gonna say that looks
Yes,
like
yes,
that looks like Cliff Crochet's.
yes. Um,
So
I
what is that called?
this is the Cliff Crochet. It's the petite.
Yeah, the petite. Okay, yes,
Yep, and this is shad color, and believe it or not, it's hard. There's only several lakes. You got Lake Wisconsin,
yes.
and you have Redstone, and you have the Mississippi River that only have shad in it. Shad is not real prevalent up here at all. But believe it or not, this bait right here, just like it is, I'm one of those ones. I never run a trailer on my spinner baits.
Never. Wow.
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. Just the action alone, and with the crusher lures with the thin wire that they have that is made out of it, you would think that you thought you was throwing a chatterbait. some kind of vibrating jig because of the thump that it gives with this light wire. And I've had, I'll go ahead and show another one real quick. Sorry. Actually, well, I got it tied on here, getting ready to put everything up in the boat to travel. But this right here, I would say, is probably my number two right here, the Pro Buzz. I'll back it up a little bit. This is a Pro Buzz.
Okay.
Now, this one right here's got like a pumpkin green magic. Usually it's either black with red or either white. But I'm a half ounce man, and Rogers found that out. And whether it's spinnerbait, jig heads, whatever, I'm a half ounce man. The thing about this is I've noticed a lot of people up here, they love that clack of the spinnerbait. But with this one right here, I know back in the day we would, if we was going fishing down south or something, and we'd bought a new buzz bait, well, we would hang it out the window, just to, you really probably can't hear it, but you would hang it out the window just to wear it out, okay, and to wear it out, but to where you want that chirp. But the way that Crusher has made these, and it's the same type of light wire as the spinner baits, but the way Crusher has made these, the wire's a certain size, but the inserts right in through here where the blade slides in is just, it's like just a touch bigger. So that way it's already wore out for you, right? It gives you that chirp. I can throw this thing in the water and you think it was a bird following you around somewhere. Last year I did a test. And I threw it on every lake that I was at. It's always tied on. Um, I actually caught 47 bass between smallmouth and largemouth. I caught a total of 32 toothy critters. Never caught a muskie on it, but I caught 32 northern off of the same buzz bait and four dogfish. And I hate
Okay.
dogfish.
Yeah.
And with all them fish, it finally wore out. I mean, it finally wore out. One thing I love about this buzz bait too is the castability of it and the sturdiness. Even if, as we know, a dogfish, whenever they get it, they'll mangle it, right? I mean, it's mangled. You come up and you're like, oh God, it's gone. But the adjustability that you can go back, now you can only do it so many times because bending metal, as we know, will
Yeah.
break it. Also, what I like about the light wire is I don't know if you can really tell. You see how it's bent up like this?
Yeah.
How it's kind of, so I did that because I like to skip. I like to skip a buzz bait up underneath the docks. Up here the docks are only put in a certain time of year, right?
Yes.
So if they're up underneath the docks somewhat or up underneath the walkways, I'll bend it up just a little bit so that way I can skip it and it will skip. Now, me, I never ever run a plastic bait on my buzz baits. It's all skirts every time, every time. I don't have to put some kind of frog on here. I don't have to put any kind of trailer on here to make this bait skip at all. But I would say those two are my favorites, and I guess my third is a hammerhead. So as you can see, it's flat on the bottom.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's got it's got a wire, it's got a grass
Oh,
guard on it.
so is
Yeah.
that for Ned rigging or
So,
shaky head?
so yeah, this is actually shaky head. You can use shaky head. I've used shaky head. As a matter of fact, this is what I like to do a lot. I'll rig it up here a little bit. This is really what I like to do. I'll take a type of flatworm. This is a, you can take any type of worm you like, and you can use it as a Ned rig. I'll go ahead and put it on here. You can shorten it up, use it as a Ned. But this right here, I actually like to rig it up like this. So it's almost just like a shaky head, which I know you've had Roger on and you've seen the shaky heads that Crusher Lure has.
Sure, sure.
But I like I like to rig mine like this, like with a flat worm or something like that, because believe it or not, and this is a Bait Cave Customs flatworm that they use for your smallmouth or whatever. This right here, whenever it goes down, believe it or not, this floats. This worm just floats and just dangles like that. Um, I like to use it for that. Also, don't have a wacky worm out here. Believe it or not, for a weighted wacky, I use it for the same thing. I'll use it for a weighted wacky rig. Instead of having to buy or have several different types, I'll do that. Um, but this right here, maybe I shouldn't show this, but uh, everybody says that they shouldn't show their secrets. But as we know, up here, up north, there's
Tubes, yeah.
the tube, right?
Tubes, yeah.
Tubes. That is probably between that and a flatworm or either a jig, and that is another one of my favorites. Um, this right here is probably your number one smallmouth bait, right? So,
Yes.
as we know, jig heads, jig heads for tubes are they're very hard to find this time of year. In the right size. Yeah, sure you can order them, but guess what? They're only used for one thing, and that's for a tube, right? So I got to messing around. I'm sitting there going, dead gummit. At certain times of year, the earlier part, I'd say the early part of summer, late part of spring, right? Well, you're out there; those smallmouth are coming up. They're getting ready to start bedding. They're just starting to get into some good grass and everything. Well, you take the tube out there and you really just you'll feel the grass and you'll just pop it a little bit, pop it through the grass. Well, what usually happens whenever you have that tube jig head? You're gonna come up and you're gonna have grass strands on it,
Yeah,
right?
the grass gets caught on your hook, yeah.
So what I did is, as I'm sorry, I should have wore a white shirt. You can see that wire keeper right there.
Yes.
So what I did one day, I was sitting here. I just wet it a little bit. So I was sitting, I was messing around. I was like, well, dadgummit, there's got to be something because I'd ran out of jig head. I'd ran out of jig heads. So I grabbed one, and as you'll see, I'm sticking this wire right through here, and I'm just turning, just working that head in there, just like that, right? So I got the wire in there, and you got it to where, your line tie is right there. I don't know if you can see it a little bit through my finger, through the back of my finger. You still have your line tie right there to where you can get it. And guess what? You got a weedless tube. You got a weedless tube head. And with the various different sizes as far as weights, I actually tied this on. I was like, I got to see how this works. I got to see how it's going to work because a lot of times you're real heavy on the tube, right on the front end. So whenever it goes down there, it lays on the bottom, right? It just lays on the bottom.
Yeah.
Whenever I tied this on with 8 pound test line, with that head being like it did, it actually went down, and I did it in the bathtub. It actually went down and boom, it stood straight up just like this. And
Wow.
whenever I worked, I was like, okay, I got to see how this is going to work through the grass. And I did. I tried it through the grass, popping it through the grass. I had less grass get on that, and plus, you've got a you've got a jig head right here, a hammerhead, shaky. This is the hammerhead. You got one head that can do multiple different applications with.
So let's be very clear right here.
Hmm.
This is the Crusher Lures Hammerhead.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hammerhead jigs at crusherlures.com.
Yes, sir. And I
Okay.
would, and as far as um, whenever I rig it up, as you can see, it is flat. Um, the one good thing about this, now you're always going to get hung up, no matter what. At times you're going to get hung up, but with the way that this thing is designed, I've probably hung up probably 6 or 7 times. As you know, in rocks up in here, you're going to get in a
Oh
crevice
yeah,
and you're not going to get it out,
yeah,
right? That's going to happen.
of course.
But I would say my hang up ratio as far as breaking off and getting hung up in rocks or whatever has gone way down with this. And the
Okay.
hooks, I will say with other brands that is like this, the problem that I've seen is once you catch a lot of fish on one, usually what happens is this part right in here where your hook goes into your head starts getting loose. You start getting loose. I have yet to have one of these get loose at all. This this right here I've got tied on right now on one of my rods back here. It's tied, it stays on all the time, 100%. Um, the next and there's actually four. So and you can tell how this one has been used. So this right here is a Crusher Lures heavy finesse jig, 1/2 ounce, a little smaller. Um, Absolutely a killer for largemouth up here and smallmouth. I got it. I got it tipped with a crawl, and that's what I mainly use 90% of the time. I'll tip it with a crawl.
Okay, let
Uh,
me ask you this.
sure.
So you're using a half ounce heavy finesse jig from Crusher Lures
Yes,
with a
sir.
crawl on it
hmm
up north in Wisconsin. What kind of cover are you targeting with this particular presentation?
So this one right here, Rock Bluffs.
Rock
Uh,
bluffs, okay,
yes,
like on the Wisconsin River, yeah.
yes, sir. Rock Bluffs. Also, I will skip this underneath docks, and it doesn't take. And I think what it is this time of year with the reaction, it's more of a reaction bite. That thing is skipping up underneath that dock, and it's like you can watch your line go, bam. You can watch it snap. It's just a great reaction bite. And if I want to slow it down, I'll make my trailer, I'll make my trailer a little bit longer if I really want to slow it down.
That comes to my next question. Yeah,
Mhm,
you kind of touched on a little bit.
mhm.
So now in the deep summer, which is what we're in, how are you working that if you don't get bit right away? Are you skip? Are you hopping it? Are you dragging it? Are you
Most
swimming it?
so for swimming, that's a different, that's a Crusher Lure swim jig that I use if I swim it. But most of the time with this right here, I'll let it go right to the bottom, and I'll just work it just a little bit. I'll just give it a little bit of bump to give to give it a little bit of reaction. Um,
So you're just pretty much just dragging it then.
yeah, yeah, and especially on the
Okay.
rock bluffs, I'll just let it. It'll get to a ledge and it'll stop, and I'll just kind of pop it off and let it fall down a little bit, a little bit more. And they get most of the time they'll get it on the fall, most of the time, every bit of the
Okay.
time. Um,
Okay.
Now swim jigs. I'm sorry, I've got. So this right here is probably one of my favorite colors in a swim jig, and it's that green pumpkin magic, as you can
Oh,
tell.
nice,
Yes.
nice.
Now you want to talk about something, eh, whenever, down south I'm used to red-eared sunfish,
Yeah.
or of course we have bluegill, brim, and everything. But really what I've noticed is up here, the brim are mostly this color right here. This time of year is this color, and this will be the only time you'll ever see me use a a swim type bait. And what I'll do is I'll take this is a sour, it's what they call a sprayed grass, by Bait Cave Customs, and I'll just dip that part just a little bit in chartreuse, and I'll slowly just run that through the grass because right now our water temperature is actually some of the lakes around here has gotten up to 80. Okay.
Wow.
Yes, some of the lakes. The big river is the Mississippi River. It's like 74, 75.
Oh,
Some
yeah,
of the
look where it
smaller
comes
lakes.
from. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also that color, it's a little bit like the yellow perch too, which is another
Mhm.
big forage fish up there.
Yeah.
Yellow perch is also one of my very favorite fish to eat.
And that right there, what I've got pins too, and if I see they're really feeding on perch, well, guess what? I'll take and I'll just down the sides right through here, and I'll even kind of hold the skirt back just a little bit, and I'll actually just take my pin, my orange spiket pin, and just kind of just draw the lines through there, make a little bit of our orange belly, and it's some you got to keep the toothy critters off of it. But boy, whenever you talk about whenever they're actually the largemouth are actually feeding on this, it's unstoppable. It's not.
So I'm looking at where your brush guard is. Did
Mhm.
did you did you cut that at all?
So I cut it just a little bit. It is just a little bit longer, and then also what I'll do, it depends on the type of cover that I'm fishing in. If I'm fishing in real heavy cover, I will leave every strand in here, and I'll cut it back just a little bit. But if I'm fishing grass or something, hydrilla, hydrilla is really that, and eelgrass is really prevalent up here, as we all know, unless you get in some lakes to where they have the wild rice.
Yes. Oh, I love wild rice. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot.
You can see the fish swimming around it. You can see the rice actually, moving as the fish are moving around it. That is so exciting. Of
Yes.
course,
Now
it's usually northern pike, but
yeah. Well, now there's a lake that's about 2 hours north of me, called Schwamigan, Lake Schwamigan, and it's in the
oh,
Schwamigan Forest.
is, is,
Great.
is that is that Chequamegon Bay is on Lake Superior.
Yeah, and it's just south of there, near what they call a little place called P Town. P
Okay.
Town is just it's probably about an hour north of Marshfield up there. A lot of times, what I'll do is like whenever I'm fishing up there and that, I will actually take a couple of these, and I'll cut them off to thin it, to make it a little softer,
Yes.
and like I said, it just all depends on on everything the cover I fish. And the thing about all crushers, they're the the hooks. This is no small hook at all.
No.
This is a Gamakatsu hook, and and most all the swim jigs come with, you got a little rattle. I don't know if you can see it. It's got a little
I can see
rattle.
it. Yeah.
Yep, it's got a little rattle in there. I always leave it on, and it's just amazing, how they bite that. It's
Wow.
tremendous.
That is
Yes,
really
sir.
cool.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to ICAST. I
Sorry,
think
I'm jealous. Roger asked me if I was going to be there, and Brad Yole from the Bassin magazine asked me if I was going to be there, and a
mhm.
couple other companies.
Yeah.
No,
Well, it's
I'm having a hard time with this economic slowdown, and I just can't. I just can't, drive there and take care of my own lodging. I just can't
oh,
do it.
absolutely. I mean, yeah, with the way gas prices, and it's unfortunate that I've actually missed the last two NPFL tournaments, but hopefully
Ooh,
we're
that's hard.
yeah, but
You miss Saginaw Bay?
I did.
Darn it, man. A good smallmouth bass fisherman like you would have done well there.
Well,
The guys I'm talking to who did really well were
mhm.
fishing largemouths in
Well,
shallow water on the Saginaw River.
yeah, well, there was a lot. I mean, I was talking to a lot of the guys that was there fishing, and they were catching a lot. But as you seen, Gary went out there, and he braved the rough water, and he did it. He
He did it.
stuck
He
to,
did it.
he stuck to his
But,
game plan, and
you
and he
know,
did it.
number three caught it on largemouth, just like Brock Mosley.
Hmm.
I
Yep.
actually interviewed the guy and I called him, "How's it going there, Brock Mosley?" I'm sure you've been called worse names, but man, he did the same thing. He went against the grain and he scored.
And that's like me. I don't. Um, yes, we as fishermen, we always want to win, right? That's the biggest thing. But I'm not a follower. That's one thing. I'm not a
See,
follower.
see, and Brock Mosley, not a follower,
Hmm.
consistently works in one of the toughest fields to score in the world.
Oh
MPFL
yeah.
is also one of the tougher fields to score in.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's
There's
right up
some.
there. And the guy who went against the grain,
Yeah.
fourth or
There's
third,
Yeah.
third.
Third. Yep. Yeah.
Damn.
There's some hammers in there. I mean, you
Oh
got
yeah.
John Sook up in there. You got Perkins. You got a lot of great people that's fishing in there, and hopefully we're going to get back on track and hopefully be at Sandusky, finish out the last ones of the year, and
Well, there
get
you
back on
go. I mean,
track.
there's a lot of different things you can do in Sandusky. You can go for the largemouth if you want in shallow water, like a good Southern guy should,
No,
or
no.
or you can go for or
The-
you can go out into Lake Erie and sort through freshwater drum and catch some pigs of smallmouth.
Wait a minute, that's a large smallmouth, is what you're talking about. them them drum or something else. They're fun to
Yeah, well,
catch.
but you got to sort through a lot of those in order to find the
Yeah,
smallmouth, and it's just a fact of life in that body of water. But when you find the smallmouth, it's worth every freaking. I mean, the
absolutely.
smallmouth are this big around because they've been sitting in there eating, just gorging on those gobies.
And
And of course, when the gobies came out into the Great Lakes, all doom and gloom. All of all of Western civilization is going to fall now because gobies got in. They
oh
said the
no.
same thing about the zebra mussels,
Yeah.
and look what the zebra mussels did to Lake St. Clair.
Oh, it cleaned it up and
Yep.
everything, and believe it or not, I learned a lot about goby while I was up here, especially fishing up there at Big Bay and Little Bay to Knock.
Isn't that fun? God.
Oh my gosh! And I actually caught a goby, and the person that was with me, it was a 2-day club tournament, and then the person that was fishing with me, she had caught one, and brought it in the boat. She's like, "Oh my God, this is the first one," and it was a good goby. I mean, it was a big one, but I didn't realize that goby can only get 12 inches off the bottom because they don't have air bladders. And she was looking like, "Oh my gosh, this is so nice!" And she stuck her finger up there, and that thing bit her.
And they have teeth, yeah.
Yes, they do, and they're mean
They have
jokers.
teeth.
But it's like cotton candy to a baby. That's
They're not
exactly
as
what.
mean as smallmouth bass, though.
No, no, smallmouth will eat them up.
They just gobble them, man. I've actually sat there and looked at live wells after fishing smallmouth on Green Bay, and yuck,
Yeah,
yuck. This is worse than shad. You know,
exactly, and exactly it
shad
is.
have an oily, kind of tinge to them, but these things were just gross.
Well, I met the game warden several times down on Redstone, and really got to be real good friends with several of them. And I'll stop and talk to them, and really ask them how, like, how did the threadfin shad get in this lake? And they's like, well, we don't know. Well, I guess you got a lot of people that ice fish. You got a deeper lake, so. And then all of a sudden, I was out there earlier this year, and of course, everything up here is completely lake. I mean, you still have some smallmouth and you still have some largemouth that are guarding fry right now. And
Jeez. Hey,
yes,
Kevin, we have
yes.
a comment here.
Okay,
Cajun Rob, he's another member of the Crusher team.
okay.
And he says, thanks for sharing that tube trick with the hammerhead. He said he uses a stupid tube, and your method is definitely a great alternative to that. And then he ends saying, crush them.
That's right. Crush them. Well,
Thank you very much, Rob.
yep. Thanks, Rob. Thank you. I, and I just, like I said, I was just sitting around and I was like, I got to come up with something because anybody that wants to rig a stupid tube, okay, you got to rig it around and this, that, and other. But there again, whenever you have that wire right there, that weed guard, it acts the same way. I mean,
It does.
it truly does. And believe it or not, whenever that tube falls through the water, most of the time with that tube, it's just going to go straight down, right? But believe it or not, with the head on there. it actually forms to the front of that tube. And if you get it light enough, I think this was this one's one of my little heavier ones, but you get them lighter and some of the lighter weights, it'll actually that tube will actually wobble going down, and it'll make the tentacles wobble as it's going down with the line to the bottom.
Wow,
S-
wow,
Yep, yep,
that's pretty cool, man. Well, hey, Kevin,
yes, sir.
it's been a pleasure having you on this show. And to close the show, what I'd like you to do is I'd like to know if you have any shout outs you'd like to do, any thank yous to organizations, companies, individuals who
I
helped you along the way.
I tell you, number one, the good Lord above.
Sure.
Without Him, we definitely, myself and many others, we wouldn't be able to do this. We wouldn't be here enjoying what we do. To all the veterans, I've
Thank you.
got a good friend of mine that fishes the MPFL, Mike Johns, that owns FX3. He does a lot for veterans with suicide and stuff. He's got a hotline that anybody can call. You can look up familyandfriends.com and donate to that. And FX3, you can look up FX3. They're on Facebook. And ultimately, Crusher Lures. Roger took a big chance on me because I actually bought some of Crusher Lure stuff, and then I reached out to him and applied on the page, and I just went hog wild with Crusher, and because I believe in their products, I'm not going to fish a product that I don't believe in.
Of course.
Uh, uh,
Yes. You're
um,
definitely not going to represent a company you don't believe in. Yeah.
Absolutely, and great people. We got Cliff Crochet, Stephanie
Yep.
Perlin. You've had on Nikki Johatton, Brasher. John Pollard, and several others. And
Jamie
we've
Hartman.
Yep, Jamie Hartman. He's doing good this year. I hope he goes up. I hope he wins up there.
Yep.
He does good up there. So let's hope he wins it. I would tell him to throw something, but hopefully he's not listening, so I'm not going to say it. But
Yeah.
uh, Bait Cave Customs for all the plastics and everything. They've supplied me absolutely wonderful plastics and very, very sturdy plastics. And they all float. They make customs. They can make a Cinco style and put salt, any kind of stuff that you want in them as well. And very durable custom colors. You can reach out to them at baitcave.com. Plus, they're on Facebook. They do live on Sundays at 6 p.m. Um, also, uh, some good friends of mine, Corey and Julie Wynn. Corey, I would call Corey as my, Corey's my mechanic. He's the brake man. He helps with everything, and his wife is very grateful. Really grateful for them. They're my family up here is who they are. And just come on board within the past 2 or 3 weeks is Mag's Custom Rods out of Gwinn, Michigan, Upper Michigan. I don't know if they used to be in. Well, I say used to be. He's a Pat Magladonna owns Mag's Custom Rods. They will make anything that you want, and I'm telling you what it is. I've been so impressed. I've had a chance to fish with many rods, but I'm so impressed with these. As we get older, we get tendonitis, and we want the lighter rods and stuff. But and it fits every aspect. And he just sent me a bunch of rods, and he kind of threw me a curveball in there, and which whenever I pulled it out, I was sitting there going, wait a minute. I was sitting there looking at it. I'm sitting there going, I'm almost going like a roller coaster. He sent me a spiral. Yes,
A spiral rod.
yes,
How
yes.
does that work?
So whenever I seen it, I fished one a long time ago, but you can't find them very much. A lot of it's used for offshore fishing. It's more of a west coast. It's more of a
Or
west.
jigging? Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, where you just drop it straight down.
it's more of a west coast thing too. A lot of people out on the west coast use it for bass fishing. But if you think about it, and whenever I seen it, my hairs just rose up, and I was like, "Oh my God!" First thing I did, I put a spinner bait on it. That's the first thing I did, because if you think about it, whenever you whenever you put tension on, if you grab your line at the very front of your rod and you bend it over like you got a fish, look at your line. Your line up top towards your parabolic bend is going to be either on one side of the rod or the other. It's not going to be straight through the eyelets up there. But with this, with the spiral, your line is straight. You're actually using the action of that rod, and you don't have the torque in your hand, which makes your wrist tired whenever you're setting the hook on the fish. So it's, and as far as the castability, it's great. But I'm really looking forward to a real long relationship. Hopefully we're going to get up there and maybe work with Pat, and come out with some more different styles, because I told him what I like to throw for all my spinner baits, really, whether it be a spinner bait or either a top water. My buzz bait, I love to throw a 6'9" medium, extra fast or either fast. And it's really hard for people to believe that I would throw a medium rod on a spinner bait, or a half-ounce spinner bait, or anything like that. But there again, I don't fish mono. I don't fish mono. I let the rod do the action. I let
So,
the
so do you fish braid or fluoro?
I fish no, I fish floral. I'm really 99.9% fluorocarbon. I actually have one rod that's rigged up for Brasher whenever I come down there. It's rigged up with braid because it's what he wants to punch with. But other than that, I I I put braid as backing on my spinning rods. I do that. Tie a regular OFG knot with a anywhere between a 10 to 20 foot leader, and mostly anywhere between 8 to 10 pound test line. Um,
Okay.
yeah, but thanks to all my friends and family for the support, and also the company I work for. I'm not, technically, I don't know if I can name their name, but they've been on board with this with me, and allowing me to work remotely during the tournaments, the long travel and stuff like that. So a huge shout out to them and all my friends and family. Seriously.
Okay. Well,
Yep.
thank you very much, Kevin. I certainly did appreciate you coming on the show. I certainly enjoyed having you as a guest. You've been very informative. Man, you're going to be welcome on my show anytime. Um, so stick around after we end the show. I'd like to talk to you for a couple minutes afterwards. I'd
Okay.
like to thank everybody for tuning in to the Let's Talk Fishing podcast with Jay Angel. Let's Talk Fishing podcast, folks, is brought to you by Grant Rods, the American Bass Club, and of course, Crusher Lures. And tonight I had a very special guest, Kevin
Jay,
Gables. Yeah.
it has been an honor. It's been a pleasure. You were my first podcast.
Well,
So,
thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that, man. Stick around, Kevin. I'd like to talk to you.
okay.
And with that, guys, have fun this weekend. You only get to do this once. Remember that.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody.